Today's conversation is based on this quote here from Neville, where he says, "If a physical fact can produce a psychological state can produce a physical fact. If the effect A can be produced by the cause B, then inversely, the effect B can be produced by the cause A. Now, there's only one cause, and it is within. I am. Therefore, I say unto you, all things whatsoever ye pray and ask for, believe that ye have received them, and ye shall have them." See, all power is now. We have the ability to choose in our imagination how we relate, what we relate to the current experiences, whatever it is that we're experiencing right now. That is what we're thinking feelingly upon. And everything that we think feelingly upon is impressed upon the subconscious mind. The feeling of it being true, in harmony with our vision or not. Regardless, we're praying if we think feelingly upon it. So in relation to experiences and in relation to our ideal outcome, Mark 11:24. I mentioned this many times. Desire means you already have. Anytime a desire arises, thank you, I have. That's a prayer. So a story that pops up in my mind is 2008, I was working at this large retailer's IT department. It was my career for 10 years prior to starting my IT business in 2009, which I built to success. So around that time, I saw these two Lamborghinis that were parked in the parking lot, the building which was right beside ours. One was a black one and one was a yellow one. And I remember asking people in the office, at that time I was very interested in entrepreneurship. And we could say signs were starting to arise of me actualizing that vision. So I would ask them about, what do you think that those owners would do? Now they would say, we could say very limiting and disempowering things. Now, we know that people reflect our state. A little while after, I was actually at this cafe that was across the street, and I ended up in the parking lot, and I saw that there was this guy parked in the yellow Lamborghini, and I was driving as well. It was a drive-through, so I pulled up beside him, and I started talking with him. It felt completely natural to talk to him. That's what happens when we abide in a state. Everything we do, don't do, what we say, don't say, flows naturally from the state that we abide in. So it's very clear to me now that I was in that state. At that time, I didn't understand this information to this degree. So I started a conversation with him, and then he said to me, would you be interested in working with us? We've got a deal you might be interested in. So it was a complete flow-based conversation. We were having a lot of fun. We were talking about a lot of things, and I felt very much like I was deeply embodying, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that state that I desired to experience. It felt I already have it. It was the feeling of it being true in that moment. So after that conversation, I started to have certain kinds of thoughts. We can call them thoughts in relation to shame, condemnation, doubt, uncertainty, fear. Now, when one witnesses these thoughts in mind, they can simply let them pass. Similar to what we discuss in the 7-Day Mental Diet by Emmett Fox. I'll link in the description to that video. Or they may start to think feelingly from the premise of already having, which again is prayer. Mark 11:24. Therefore I say unto you, all things whatsoever ye pray and ask for, believe that ye have received them, and ye shall have them. Now I began to identify with those thoughts, and then I ended up in a different state. And I tried to get a hold of him at that time, which was from that state, not the ideal state of consciousness, but the state, the former state. And it was challenging to get a hold of him. Interesting how in one state, it was so easy to connect with him and everything flowed. And then from another state, I experienced him completely different, which proves the point. People reflect our state. Now, that's why he says prayer is an art and requires practice. The first requirement is a controlled imagination. Parade and vain repetitions are foreign to prayer. Its exercise requires tranquility and peace of mind. Use not vain repetitions, for prayer is done in secret, and thy Father, which seeth in secret, shall reward thee openly. So had I had known this to the degree back then, I would acknowledge that I was entering into a different state by thinking feelingly of those undesirable states, the states that are not in harmony with my vision. And I would have not identified with those thoughts. I would let them pass. As he says here, the perfect one judges not after appearances, but judges righteously. They see others as they desire them to be. They hear only what they want to hear. They see only good in others. To them is no condemnation, for they transform the world with their seeing and hearing. So again, all power is now. What are we thinking feelingly upon now? The practice is really what he says here. We should often deliberately disentangle our minds from the evidence of the senses and focus our attention on an invisible state, mentally feeling it and sensing it until it has all the distinctness of reality. That's prayer. In the moment, if one is identified with an undesirable state, they can release identification to it by returning back to the silence. In the moment, in the silence, pure consciousness, we can then see the invisible, as though we already have it. What would the feeling be like if it were true? We captured the feeling. Thank you. I already have. Feel it. Now, what was interesting is over the years, I had released identification to a lot of this imaginal activity that was from the former state, or we can say the old man in the Bible. And interestingly, over the last few months, I acquired a consulting client that does something similar to what they were doing, because they were involved with essentially dealing with exotic cars. The same thing happened actually with an IT business client. I was interested in growing my IT business to the next level, and in 2013, I decided that it wasn't something that I was interested in anymore. The desire wasn't there. So I went into consulting. I started this channel. And then later on, I ended up acquiring a client who actually stayed the course because that's what they truly desired. And they built their business to having many employees, huge operations all around the world. The kind of success that I once desired to have, but I lost the desire to have it. So what ended up happening was I remained in that state till it actualized to a certain degree. I was happy with it. And then I entered into a different state. Nothing wrong with that. You go by what you desire and not going by the appearances. Now, this is very specific because what are the appearances? Well, we're the ones assigning meaning by what we think feelingly in relation to the appearances. People, environment, circumstance, information are not telling you what to think feelingly upon. There is only one cause, and it is within. I am. We choose what to impress upon the subconscious mind, and then some way, somehow, the unseen power, that's God, takes what you imagine and animates all and appears as all that is animated to reflect what you imagine. So if we are the only ones suggesting, we are the only ones imagining in relation to appearances, then it is key to acknowledge that if someone were to say something that we would call limiting or disempowering, like, for example, some that I work with around that time, they're only reflecting past imaginal activity. This is in relation to appearances. If you're abiding in a state and thoughts of doubt, indecision, shame, condemnation appear in mind from former states that were once identified with, return back to the stillness. Allow the thoughts to be. Allow the emotions to be. Or you could apply what we talked about in Thursday's video, where you can transmute the desire. Napoleon Hill philosophy of transmuting the burning desire, transmutation towards the service to others. That fuels me on the journey to actualizing my vision. Because every transformation begins with a desire. You desire to be in a certain state, so you accept it. I already have it. Thank you. That's prayer. As now is where all the power is. And then, if we end up in a different state, the desire is still there. Again, thank you. I already have. We fulfill the desire with it and return back to the state. And each one of these imaginal acts, that which we think feelingly upon, impresses the subconscious mind, in which the unseen power takes that impression and externalizes it for you. You remain in that state. And that's why he said prayer is an art and requires practice. If one enters into a state, they may have a desirable experiences appear, like for example in my story, and then they may end up in a different state. It was a wonderful experience. It taught me a lot of things. So again, no shame and condemnation. We go through experiences in life so that we can learn how to consciously apply the two gifts, mind and speech. Mind is blank, and you place in mind via your inner speech what you desire to experience. As he says here, our subconscious assumptions continually externalize themselves that others may consciously see us as we subconsciously see ourselves, and tell us by their actions what we have subconsciously assumed ourselves to be. So we let the world be, and we bring awareness to what we once thought feelingly upon, and release identification to it by thinking feelingly from the premise of having. He says the conscious mind reasons inductively from observation, experience, and education. Now, this is not a problem, the conscious mind reasoning inductively from observation, experience, and education. It is revealing what we once thought feelingly upon. Here are 3 questions that help with this, because we go back to the beginning here. The premise is, what would the feeling be like if it were true? And as mentioning, we're praying often. Anytime we think feelingly upon something, that's prayer. So what we desire is to experience what we desire, to acknowledge that we have it, we fulfill it within. That would be the feeling, to prove that we already have it, to allow it to happen. That's the feeling we're interested in. What I'm not interested in is thinking feelingly upon something that I would not consider to be true, not in harmony with who I desire to be, how I personally desire to live. So we disentangle our mind from the evidence of the senses of others appearing to tell us what to do, information appearing telling you what to do, environments appearing to telling you what to do. They're not actually telling you what to do. Only you can think feelingly upon in relation to people, environment, circumstance, and information. And that is what's being impressed upon the subconscious mind. So, good questions to ask. What am I relating to imaginal activity related to the past? Now is where all the power is. Anything in relation to our past is purely imaginal now. Anything that we relate to in imagination with regards to the future is purely imaginal now. Now is where we experience reality. And what we think feelingly, what we imagine now, leaves an impression on the subconscious mind with regards to the past, with regards to what we're experiencing now, what one desires to experience in the future. opportunities for impressing the subconscious mind with imaginal activity, and I would recommend doing it from the premise of already having what you desire. What I encourage is a flow-based journey to the destination. And one of the ways that I maintain the flow-based journey to the destination is to release any former conversations which are revealed in my emotions, thoughts, how I relate to people, environment, circumstance, and information. Release identification to any inharmonious imaginal activity so I can experience my heaven on earth. So here are 3 things to help with that. Number 1, what am I relating to imaginal activity related to the past, or what we believe to be the past? We can change how we relate to any experience in our past accordingly. For example, in that particular experience that I mentioned to you, I relate to it as a wonderful story I get to share that articulates the point that some way, somehow, you actualize what you desire. And there was not only a desire to actualize entrepreneurial success, which happened, but also to work with very specific kinds of businesses, which ended up happening at a certain point. Thoughts reveal, if you track back the thoughts, you can bring awareness to the story you're telling yourself, what you're imagining to be true. Same to be said with emotions. You can have a conversation with your emotions, and emotions bring awareness to the imaginal activity that is resulting in the emotions being experienced that way. For example, in number 3, which will relate the 2 together, is there fear, shame, or condemnation? So one can experience an undesirable state, abiding in an undesirable state, as thoughts of fear, thoughts of shame, thoughts of condemnation, for example. They can also experience or know what state they're abiding in by how they're relating to their emotions, be it through labels of shame, fear, or condemnation. Now, Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich talks about the 6 basic fears: fear of poverty, fear of criticism, fear of ill health, fear of loss of love, fear of old age, fear of death. Now, beliefs of poverty or criticism appeared in the conversations I was having with some of my coworkers at the time at the company that I work with. And I found myself identifying with that imaginal activity at times. So one more so each day has the opportunity to think feelingly. And when I say more so each day, it's really now, as all the power is now. Think feelingly from the premise of having. So if thoughts of fear, criticism, or emotions are related to in a way that we could say are bringing awareness to the beliefs that result in the emotions being experienced that way of poverty, fear, or through the lens of, we can, in that moment, take a deep breath, return back to the silence. Because in the silence is where all the power is. Because in the silence, we acknowledge that we already are love, happiness, peace, bliss, and fulfillment. And from that stillness, it's easier to imagine what implies, to acknowledge that which you already have. One of the reasons why I believe he said, its exercise requires tranquility and peace of mind. You feel tranquility and peace of mind when you abide in the stillness, silence. You could do it at any moment. You transcend the body, transcend the emotions, transcend the thoughts, transcend the experiences. That is how we deliberately disentangle our minds from the evidence of the senses, and then focus our attention on an invisible state, mentally feeling it and sensing it until it has all the distinctness of reality, whatever it implies. Imagine a person saying it differently. They said it to you one way, which may be considered limiting or disempowering. Reimagine them saying it a different way. That's prayer. Praying as though, imagining as though you already have it. We don't blame, shame, or condemn. We let the world be. They're simply revealing the state. So what do? I go within, release identification, and reimagine it. He says prayer, the art of believing what is denied by the senses, deals almost entirely with the subconscious. Through prayer, the subconscious is suggested into acceptance of the wish fulfilled, and reasoning deductively, logically unfolds it to its legitimate end. So, thoughts of shame, fear, condemnation, and in relation to fear specifically, as Napoleon Hill articulated, fear of poverty, criticism, we don't enable those states unless we choose to think feelingly upon those thoughts. So if they appear in mind, let them pass. If you are currently identified with those thoughts, for whatever the reason may be, return back to the stillness. Acknowledge that you transcend the body, the mind, the thoughts and mind, the emotions. Let them be. Or apply what we discussed in Thursday's video. Transmute it. Acknowledge that the desire to have means you already have. Desire means having. As he said one time, to desire a state is to have it. Now, when you desire a state and you acknowledge you already have it, that's prayer. Again, therefore I say unto you, all things whatsoever ye pray and ask for, believe that ye have received them, and ye shall have them. So in summary, what would the feeling be like if it were true? We're praying whenever we think feelingly upon an experience. And what we're instructed to do here, provided that one desires to live the life they truly desire to live and live it by acknowledging that they already have what they desire, is to think feelingly only upon that which you desire from the premise of already having, and release identification to thinking feelingly upon anything that is not in harmony with your vision. Some way, somehow, it materializes. As mentioned, with the IT business client, with the other client who deals with the exotic cars, it's wonderful. It's amazing how it works. You can craft your entire life to be exactly how you desire it to be. I've done this with attributes of clients, attributes of relationships, attributes of different experiences of life. And I have not found a limit to the degree that this can be done, because it doesn't provide any limitation of what's possible in the Bible. As a matter of fact, it says, all things are possible to them that believe. And so, how do you believe? By thinking feelingly from the premise of already having. Disentangling your mind from the evidence of the senses. If you really want to split hairs, the senses do not deny. It's what we're imagining in relation to the senses. The senses reveal what was once imagined, the five sensory information, the five sensory experience. It's made visible through the senses from imagination, again, from the one cause within. So what do we say of the I am within? What do we say of the I am within now? No shame and condemnation. Now is where all the power is. And so this is the practice. As applicable, we do this in relation to experiences. If by identifying with certain imaginal activity in relation to the experiences, we bring ourselves into an undesirable state. In that moment, we do what he says here. Disentangle deliberately our minds from the evidence of the senses. The evidence of the senses, that which we give meaning to, that which we think feelingly upon, is what we are impressing upon the subconscious mind. And so, in that moment, we can release that identification. Disentangle our minds from the evidence of the senses and focus our attention on an invisible state, mentally feeling it and sensing it until it has all the distinctness of reality. And anything a person believes about the five sensory experience is just that, a belief. And beliefs are not fixed, they can be changed. States, beliefs, they can be changed whenever you'd like. They're like clothes. You can change them whatever you'd like to have different experiences in life. So the question is, are we thinking feelingly from the premise of fulfilled desire? Or are we thinking feelingly from the premise of identification to fear, shame, condemnation? Which again, fear can be revealed if you want to segment it further. Fear of poverty, fear of criticism, fear of ill health, fear of loss of love, fear of old age, fear of death. If one continues to identify with imaginal activity in relation to fear of poverty, fear of criticism on the journey to actualizing the vision, Perhaps they might see it play out in the conversations with others, in the information that they experience. And why create an unnecessary force-based journey to actualizing the vision? We have the opportunity right there to be conscious of what we're thinking feelingly upon and change that former conversation. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's go ahead and conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You could say, now is where all the power is to imagine my past ideally, to imagine my future ideally, to imagine the evidence of the senses ideally, all from the premise of already being all that I desire to be, of already having all that I desire to have. I acknowledge that my true way of being is love, happiness, bliss, and fulfillment, and I abide in my true way of being, allowing the world to reveal that which I have imagined to be of myself. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.